Good morning, everybody. I toast to you and all you do. I hope you're having a fantastic day and a great weekend, and you had a great Thanksgiving and time with your family or not with your family, wherever you're at right now with that whole situation. Today, on our introspective journey, I wanted to talk about familiars and spirit guides and the ways that we communicate with the divine or the great energy or whatever you call it. Excuse me. So, first, I guess we have to talk. I have another video out about familiars and like the difference between a familiar and a pet. But I do want to just kind of briefly go over that. Familiars can be pets. Pets can become familiars, but not all pets are familiars, and not all familiars are pets. For me, many of my familiars are actually neighborhood birds. I've got a family of robins that have 3 generations at my house that we hang out in the springtime. They come back through for a little bit in the winter, but not very long. But it's been fun to see them throughout the years, but they talk to me in the morning. They come hang out with me in the garden. We chit-chat. They help me when I'm meditating, things like that. I had a Greckle family this year. There's a little black loudbirds, and I named him Fred. I don't normally name wild animals, but this one just squawked at me and squawked at me, like literally squawked at me. And he would be mad if I didn't come out early enough in the morning to like startle up all the bugs and wake them up so that he could come eat breakfast. It was really funny. We had a very fun relationship this spring. But, he helped to teach me that I need to speak my voice and that I can't always let my concern for other... It's such a weird, how to say it. Okay, so when I was a kid, my mom always told me to think before I speak. It took a really long time to learn that lesson. And then I finally learned that lesson, and then I spent so much time thinking before I spoke. Sometimes I wouldn't speak at all, and I would be like, I'll just let this go. It'll work itself out or whatever. And for the most part, it works out pretty good. There are times when it doesn't, especially with a relationship that I'd been in with a close friend, and it just had gotten to this weird point. So the Greckle and I had many conversations about how I need to speak up when I need to speak up. And there's a difference between thinking before I speak and not speaking. Obviously. But so that was an interesting lesson that I learned with the Greckle this year. But again, he's not a pet. He's just a bird that came. He was a familiar. I don't even know if he'll come back this year. Who knows? But next year, I guess. Whatever. Next spring. But those are just a couple of my familiars. I don't have a cat. A lot of witches are like, you need a cat familiar. I don't. I had a cat. I've had one cat who I really liked. But when we started having babies and doing things, we just couldn't have a cat anymore. He just recently passed. I'd found a good home for him. I know here he was. He was very well taken care of, and I'm so thankful to her for taking such good care of him. It was funny, he was a huge cat. He was bigger than her dog, so it was like, I named him Zeus. He was king of the castle over there. But anyways, but other than that, I've never really been a cat fan, so they're not one of my familiars. Spiders. Spiders are another familiar for me. I have, let's see, it'll be 11 generations of this orb weaver family. They're cat-based spiders. They're beautiful. They get really big. They get like this big. They're amazing. If you don't know what they are, I guess look them up. They have beautiful printing on them. They're really pretty spiders. But she's a protector for me. She is... I say she because you only see the females. They build the nests and hang out. I've seen a male here or there, but they're way smaller. And they're not like the females. The females set up shop. They build these big, beautiful webs. I'm sure you've seen them. If not, look through my channel. They're there because I love them. But so she's my protector. She is a guardian for me. She helps me connect with the spirits and the energies, but also keeps me protected while I do that work, so that I don't have to worry about going too far or going somewhere I'm not supposed to or things of that nature, because she's always there with me. I always have a tether. She's always helping me to stay firm to my earthly roots. So that's just another like example of a familiar. There are all kinds of familiars. I had a hummingbird moth hawk come to me this year, which I'd never even heard of. I've never seen. And then this year I saw like 5 of them. They became regular visitors in my garden. It was quite an amazing sight to see. They're a really cool bug. They look like a hummingbird, but they're a moth. So they're really cool. And so different guides and spirit teachers and things will come to you and speak to you. And the thing is, you have to be open to them. And you don't always, it's not always obvious. It's not always like in your face, like, hey, I'm here. My spider, the reason I say 10 generations is because when I first moved to Greeley, she was at the house. The farmhouse that I moved into was the great whatever 10 times grandmother. And she lived at that house, and she built the most beautiful web outside the front door, and it was amazing. And then when I moved, I was like kind of sad. I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose my spiders. I love this spider. I love what they do. Because they really do build just like big, beautiful, I mean, like a really good tradition, like the ones that you see on the TV. Like they build those kind of webs all the time. And big too. I had one that was like from my house, which is like right here next to me, to the garden post back there. It was huge. It was crazy. But when I moved, she moved with me. And the next spring, when I was unpacking, or when I was unpacked and living there, and I was like, whatever, she appeared. And my husband was like, he's like, check out this spider. I was like so excited. I was like, yes, she came with me. I love these spiders. It actually took me like 5 years to figure out what they actually were, because searching tan spiders in Colorado with big butts didn't give me the results that I needed. So it was actually like a coincidence. At one point, I came across a cat-faced spider. I was like, oh my god, that's the spider. And they're super docile. They're not poisonous. They're really friendly. Like, they're not a noxious spider, and they help with like keeping the sugar ants out of the house and stuff like that. So they're productive. But anyway, so she moved with me. She must have come in like a piece of garden furniture or something. Not her specifically, but her babies. Their life cycle is they lay eggs and they come out in the spring. So wherever she laid her eggs, I moved it with me. So that was exciting for me. But, and they've always been there now. Now every spring, you'll see them. They'll start to build webs around the windows and all of the corners of the house, around the garden, and just, it's entertaining. So, but it wasn't like at first I knew that this was going to be my spider. I mean, I've always liked spiders. I was always like, I need one spider that I like better than all the others. I don't want it to be a black widow or something really normal. Like, I want my spider. And then this came to me, and yeah, like I said, it's like a tether for me. It's always there. It's a great protector. A reminder that we're all connected at all times. And just a great teacher. She reminds me of the grandmother spider goddess, and it's just a way to communicate with that like maternal ancient energy of earth, I guess. So your spirit guides will come to you most of the time. I mean, like, you ask, you're like, hey, like I said, I wanted a spider, I wanted a specific spider, and that one came to me. Hello, geese. Geese are a great communicator to talk to about community and travel and working together. They mate for life, so they're a great teacher in love and tolerance and communication. That's why they chatter so much. When you're working with spirit animals, the 2 ways that I find that are best to bond with them are, one, learning about them scientifically, like look into the biology of the animal and their natural habitat and their natural, like, how they act in the wild and what their characteristics are and stuff like that, because that'll say a lot about what they're trying to teach you. Good morning. See, all the birds are coming out. They're my friends. But it wasn't until I started working with air that I became able to communicate with all of the birds. That's another aspect of it, is that sometimes your spirit animals or guides will come to you. They're not always animals. Sometimes I have fairies that I work with. I have a wisp that helps me in my meditations. Actually, when I was doing my meditation the other day about change, which I realized I think was the second time we talked about that. But when I did my meditation about change and I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, the one thing I want to change is this, and then I'm gonna really think about that thing. And for me, it was the insecurity of not feeling like I'm ever good enough. And so thinking about that and trying to think through where I needed to go and where that came from, my little wisp came and helped me bounce from memory to memory and just reminded me that it wasn't one moment. I can't say that all my insecurities came from bam, that moment. Now, wouldn't that be nice? Some people, I mean, there are traumatic experiences. You're like, I've only had one traumatic experience. This must be it. Okay, so that whatever. So for me, that's not what it was. And the little wisp, she helped me. She bounced around from memory to memory and kind of led me through my own dark memories. Not dark like they're dark. Go watch the video on Dark and Light. Sorry, it's not dark like negative, but like into my own history and through that tunnel. I don't know how to describe it, whatever. So, but the wisp went through with me and she showed me the different memories to remind me that it wasn't one moment. This was something that built up over time. And isn't going to be like, oh, bam, look, there's the one thing that caused this, so now I can fix it. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's a wisp. Like, I guess go the kids movie Brave or whatever. They have wisps in that movie. That's what it's like. It literally just like that. A little glowing ball of light that has an attitude. Not really like a bad attitude, whatever. But then I have other spirit guides that like whisper in my ear or talk to me. I've got a shadow figure that's a protector that hangs out and checks on us every once in a while to come and see how we're doing. It's not an evil thing. It's just a shadow figure. I think it's female, but I don't think that it really cares either way, so it's a they, I guess. And yeah, and so as I started working more and more with my spirit guides and listening to the spirits and the energies and working with that, my journal is really what helped me differentiate from my assumptions to what they were actually telling me. Because that's the thing, when you start working with a spirit guide, you make a lot of assumptions. You're like, oh, it must be this. It's a spider, so it must mean that they're telling me about the web of the world. It's a bird, so it must be connected with the air elements, or whatever general assumptions that we make. And these can kind of hold you back because sometimes that's not the case. A lot of times, just like your dreams or anything else, it's really specific for you. And so journaling really can help you. So if you think that you have a familiar, I know a lot of people are like, my cat's my familiar, and I found them and now they are. And they could turn into your familiar. Cats are notorious for turning into familiars, but that doesn't mean all cats are familiars. Some cats are just cats. And they don't want to communicate between you and the spirits. They just want to be. My first familiar was a dog. And Ishtar was beautiful and amazing, and she would sit in circle with us, and she always came to rituals, and she would put her little paw on me when I was meditating, and she was amazing. And even now that she's passed, I occasionally feel her energy with me. At one point, I had to ask her to give me some space because it was too much. I'm going to cry just thinking about it right now. But, so, she was my familiar. And she literally came to me. She showed up at my roommate's work. Oh, the lights got all dark. She literally showed up with us and was like, I'm going to live with you now. And she was my dog. And, she was amazing. And she was my first familiar. And it was a dog. And it was not what I had expected. But I learned a lot from her. And she helped with us in our magic, both individually and as a coven. She participated with us, which was beautiful. She's a big black lab, too. So it was very entertaining. Maybe I'll go back and find some of those old videos. She used to do videos with me when I did Sunday before the Sabbath for Hesperitus. She would come to the park with us and hang out and be in the videos and just chill. She was a chill dog. So, but definitely not a cat. I know people whose familiars are rats or lizards, snakes. I love snakes. There's a snake at the pet store right now that when I rub my finger on the glass, he comes over and he rubs his face on the glass. He's like, yes, pet me, I'll go home with you. And if my kids were older, I would have already bought him. I'm like, but my kids are too young for all that. Just because snakes have salmonella. If you didn't know this, PSA announcement. Snakes have salmonella and other bacteria, so do other lizards, iguanas, stuff like that, on their skin. That's just a natural occurring bacteria. It doesn't normally harm you. The problem is if you touch them and then you touch their mouth, hand to mouth, then you're getting those bacteria, and so it's not safe for little kids. So they typically like for you to wait. They can't. It's not like you can't hold them. You just have to be really diligent with the washing of the hands and stuff like that. Randomness for you, but I keep telling my husband if he brings home another puppy, I'm gonna buy a snake. So I feel like that's fair. But and everybody's gonna have their own familiar. You're gonna have your own way of communicating with your familiar, and they're not always gonna be animals. It's not always gonna be that way. That it's an easy way for it to be. I learned from my plants. They teach me a lot, and it's not just in the how to grow a plant. The peas and I this year had a lot of meditating together, and I learned a lot about love and about reaching out and about when you make one connection, that's just one connection, but if you make a lot of connections, then you have a strong bond. And it's not just with one person, but with a community, and it was just about growing together and building bonds that are strong. But then at the same time, remembering that even though you have all of these bonds, they are only held together by these very fragile connections that break. And so you have to nurture them, you have to love them, you have to be there, you have to be gentle. And so love should be able to be gentle like that. And it should be building new bonds when old bonds break. Like, you should be able to do that. That should be a part of your relationships. And I learned that from growing peas. And, pumpkins will hold your secrets. And you can talk to a pumpkin for hours and it'll listen forever and it'll hold your secrets, and then it'll take that energy and it'll transform it and it'll bring it into the world. And this raven behind me seems to have something to say too. It's like, hello, good morning, why aren't you talking about me? There are certain birds like the raven who are very connected with the divine. So if you work with Odin or you work with Morgana, even Minerva, they all work with the crow or the raven. She's so funny back there hollering. She's like, where are all my homies? Where's my friends at? She's all by herself today. Whatever. I just assume they're all girls because I'm a girl. She's up there squawking. Anyways, but even down to you could have a snail as your spirit guide. You could have an ant. They're each energy carries something different that it can teach you, and not all of them are going to be permanent. I probably am not going to spend a bunch of time meditating with my peas next year and learning from them. Maybe I'll pick a new animal or plant. And so it'll change. Maybe my Greco won't come back this year. I'll be sad if the robins don't come back, because like I said, they've been here every year, and it's always the dad and the son that come back. So there'll be 2 generations at a time, I guess. And they're just, it's given me the ability to see the difference between different birds. You're like, oh, they all look the same. They really don't. It's very ethnocentric to decide that of the birds. They all are different. But every year, oh look, see, there's some more ravens. She's calling them in. Every year, oh, and some sparrows. Sorry. So, don't feel like you're going to have the same spirit guide forever. Don't feel like if you lost a familiar, you're never going to get it back. Like, they rotate, they change. It's dependent on what you need to see and what you need to communicate and how you need to communicate, how you need to get those lessons. So, today, I challenge you to write down about your familiars, about your spirit guides, about how you communicate with the divine energies or the powers that be or whatever you call them, and write it down and think about who help you when you have a question and who brings you an answer. And if you don't have a familiar, think about all of the natural energies that have presented themselves to you and which ones might have been a familiar. Sometimes when people are like, oh my God, I can't get these out of my house. I mean, a great example for me is ants. I could not get the ants out of my garden. I did all the tricks. I tried all the things. I did everything that they say. Everything except for putting down poison because it's my garden and I don't want to put poison in my garden where we grow our food. Tried everything. And then one day somebody was like, maybe the ants are your spirit guide and they're trying to teach you something. Can you see my annoyance on my face? Because I was like, why would you say that? Because now I have to think about it. And stop trying to get rid of them. And I still have the occasional problem with the ants now, but it's less problematic. Like they don't dig out they don't make their home under my garden completely hollowing out the ground. Like I had a really bad fire ant problem at the last house I lived at. And we tried everything. Everything. And like I said, except for poison because it's in my garden. But when I finally was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to meditate about these ants. I'm going to think about the ants. I'm going to go talk to the ants. I'm going to do that. It got better. And suddenly I didn't have so many problems. And suddenly they weren't like consuming my garden from under the ground. Like eating entire roots. It was insane. Really an issue. But once I sat down and meditated with them and talked to them and worked with them and was like, okay, no, this does make sense. I'm a community builder. I really do believe that we all have our place in the community and that everybody can be strong and we can all work together in this very communal environment and it'll be beautiful and it's amazing. And yeah, the ants really teach that lesson. And I was like, okay, I guess we'll just work with the ants. I'll work around the ants. But now I don't have that problem anymore. I mean, when I moved, I still had an ant nest when I moved here, which was funny, that I found while I was digging. But like rototilling digging, like turning my soil. But now I know what. So if you have an ant nest and you're having a problem with them, you have to dig until you find the eggs, and then you have to take all of the eggs and move them. And when you're moving the eggs, you'll move some of the worker ants. But as you move them and you move more of them, they'll all move. They'll follow the eggs. Because if you dig out all the eggs, eventually you'll get the queen. And you move her, and then you can move their house. It does not work as well with red ants as it does with like sugar ants. Because sugar ants are more superficial in the ground. So they're up higher. So it's easier to find their nests. But randomness. See, there are all kinds of random wisdom in this video. But... So not all of your spirit guides are going to be like, oh, I have this cat and it's my spirit guide and that's really straightforward and simple. Hornets. A lot of people are like, I can't get rid of the hornets. I'm like, well, they probably have something to tell you. They're probably nesting around your house because they're trying to protect you from something, or they're trying to teach you something, or something of that nature. So think about that. Think about all of the different energies that have come to you naturally. Maybe it's a bird that wakes you up every morning. Maybe it's a mouse that you can't get rid of. Maybe it's a worm you see every day. Who knows? It'll be different for everybody. And every natural energy has something to teach you. So even if it's a worm, like say every morning you come out of your house and there's this poor worm on your patio that's like dying, you have to save it every day. That worm probably has something to teach you. So look up what a worm has to teach you. Now my curiosity is going to kill that cat, and I'm going to have to go look up what a worm means. yeah, so go get out your journal. I challenge you to write about your spirit familiar, your spirit guides, your familiars, your go-betweens, who's bringing you your omens and your messages, and who are you sending back messages with? Who do you talk to? Do you talk to the moon? Do you talk to the wind? Do you talk to the candle? Like, what energy are you talking back to help you communicate and help you build those bonds? So, now that my coffee is freezing and my toes are cold, many blessings to you, and I hope that you have a great day, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and write about those familiars. Many blessings.